can't wait.
I'm here to have real conversations, to hear from the people on the front lines of the social justice movement. The time to talk about it is now. It can't wait. First up, we're going to meet 4 members from the Social Justice Diversity Inclusion team, and I'm excited to hear what their thoughts are and what made them want to join.
I was excited, when I heard about this SJDIT, which I believe stands for Social Justice Diversity and Inclusion team. We're having an interesting conversation about how this group came together and what its purpose is.
Yeah, so basically the Social Justice Diversity Inclusion team is comprised of 13 front office employees that serve a 1-year term. They're here to help the Jets organization, both players and staff, address social justice issues by moving any initiatives that we deem important forward, along with providing resources and recommendations for how we can be better at doing our job.
Now, we talk about social justice, institutionalized racism. These are all buzzwords that really took over and took the mainstream during the height of this pandemic and, last year. And it was something that I believe captivated everybody with the death of George Floyd. When you guys saw those moments and you saw the civil arrest, how did you guys react to them personally?
I know for me, it was unique in that, growing up in the community that I did, we saw these things happen, and it was things that we had to manage however we saw fit. But this past summer, seeing the world see it and seeing the reaction that everyone had was really different. And knowing that these things that kind of we dealt with on the side at home, we're now going to have to deal with in the office and have conversations at work.
Now, Jill, I'll go to you. I'm looking at this group, and it represents diversity. How important was it for you guys to have not only racial diversity, but also gender diversity to tell your perspective? Because, women deal with different things in the workplace and society as well.
Yeah, and I think there's a value in promoting a variety of voices because, even within the Jets organization, you've had a lot of studies that show that companies with diversity in their leadership teams perform better in a whole range of areas, from being more innovative to economic performance. And it's not just about diversity in gender or race, it's about diversity in religious and political beliefs, in culture, sexual orientation, and disabilities. And this makes sense because if you have people with diverse ideas and approaches, you start to look at problems through multiple angles and you find more innovative and unexpected solutions. So having a lot of voices gets you a bit out of being complacent and having some sameness in your thinking.
Now, Des, what was your experience growing up, and what was life growing up, and what are some of your experiences that, helps bring your unique perspective to this group?
So my life growing up was pretty traditional in the most sense, but what I will say is my parents are immigrants. So both of my parents were born in Haiti. I'm a first generation American, and for us, there were a lot of cultural differences that we brought into my everyday life. You were kind of made fun of for being from a immigrant household, to tell you the truth. So for me, it was just kind of experiencing and expressing what my culture was, as well as trying to find places here in the U.S.
How big of an honor is it for you to be chosen for the first group?
It is a tremendous honor, right? You mentioned earlier that we've seen so many instances of social injustices throughout the years, and it's easy to get angry. It's easy to go through a ton of emotions, but at one point or another, you want to be the change and you want to figure out how you can make a difference in the world.
During the protest last summer, as I was listening to the pain that was being expressed, I asked myself, how am I holding myself accountable? And what more could I be doing to make sure that when this moment in time passes, that all of these actions didn't become meaningless because we failed to make any real progress in our own backyards. So this team was a way to kind of break through this feeling of being overwhelmed and not knowing what to do, and to be able to take incremental steps towards advancing social justice, both internally with the Jets, but externally in our community.
There is a certain amount of pressure I think everyone puts on themselves, because there was a tremendous amount of interest from the organization of being part of this group. So people wanted to help, and you don't want to spend your year on this group and not make significant inroads. I mean, we do know we're not going to cure the world in this group, but we believe we can make small incremental changes that will lead to that. So kind of really hyper focusing all that feeling that Des mentioned, and all those intentions, and trying to identify really little projects that will help significantly.
Well, we're looking in the back of the Des and seeing our clock. The time for justice is always now, and I want to commend you guys, congratulate you guys for what you're doing, the impact, and I look forward to see the work that you guys are doing. Thanks for being a part of episode 1. I'm only going to get better.
That was a great conversation. I'm excited on what this team is going to do going forward. But next up, a very interesting conversation between Ethan Greenberg and Judy Batista. You guys won't want to miss this. It's about the NFL initiatives and inclusion in the coaching ranks.
Judy, this has been a history textbook type year for the NFL between COVID, and then if we think all the way back to the summer with social justice, social injustice awareness. And I think that COVID gets a lot of the attention because it's the day-to-day process. It's the daily nose swabs. And with the season, now as we're recording, coming to a close soon, I feel like we should see the other side of the coin, which has been this initiative that the NFL and each team has had to try to raise awareness. What have you noticed in the biggest differences, not only in the NFL, but each individual team, and specifically the Jets?
Well, I think you've seen league-wide a lot of teams getting involved with their own social justice initiatives. There's the big sort of umbrella things that the league does, and they have things painted on the fields and all of that. But I think you see a lot of more grassroots opportunities going on with the teams and even individual players who are doing things like the Jets, who identified 4 organizations that they are going to work with, independent of what the NFL is doing, independent of what other teams are doing. 4 organizations that they're going to work with. And I was lucky enough to write about them and talk to some people about them. And I thought what stood out about those organizations is it's real grassroots, sort of like trying to change one life at a time kind of work. And that kind of stuff doesn't always generate the biggest headlines, but it does make a huge impact. I mean, I talked to a member of the Jets organization whose own life, course of her life, was changed because she got involved with one of those organizations when she was young, and she didn't quite know what she was going to do. She did not have a high school degree. She didn't really know where her future was going to take her. And she got involved in one of the organizations, and it gave her training in IT. And now she works in the IT department for the New York Jets. It's a great story. She just bought her first home, first person in her family to own their own home. It's just a great story. And now the Jets are going to work with that organization. And I was really touched. I was really moved when I reported that story, because I thought that is just such great work. And again, it doesn't generate a ton of headlines because it is real nitty gritty, like one life changed at a time, but it's such important work. And I think you're seeing more teams do things like that, like working in their own neighborhoods, in their own communities. And again, you're seeing players do it too, much to their credit. They don't have a ton of free time, but when they do, they really seem to have taken the initiative to work in their communities. And I think we saw much more of that this year than we have in the past. I'm
going to use this as an opportunity to talk about minority candidates in the NFL, because as we're recording this, it was just announced that the final head coaching opening, the Houston Texans, was filled by David Culley. And so that means 2 out of the 7 openings, there were minority head coach candidates, including Robert Saleh, who becomes the first Muslim NFL head coach. And then of the GM openings, there was 3 out of the 7. I think what happened this year, let's start with the GM, which, was pretty good progress. I guess if you want to look at it, divided just into the GMs, it more than doubled the number of minority general managers in the league. So that's a good thing. That's the good news this year. On the head coaching side, it's not great news. There's just no way around it. There were 7 openings, 2 minority hires, only 1 black coach got a job, and that's going to be in the Houston Texans.
that's just not what anybody expected when there were 7 openings. I think people expected more. I think Robert Saleh, I think everybody expected was going to get a job this cycle. I think that it would have been a complete stunner if he was not hired somewhere. I'm happy it's at the New York Jets. There are plenty of candidates. It's not a pipeline issue. It is a hiring issue, and I suspect that the Fritz Pollard Alliance, which of course is the organization that is very much working hard to get candidates ready and get candidates hired, I suspect they can't be thrilled with where things are with head coaches this year, and it's going to take time. And of course, people are tired of hearing that it's going to take time.
This is the first of many episodes to come attacking social justice. You won't want to miss this. Next up, we're going to have Tony Richardson, the great fullback, and Foley Fadakasi. It can't wait. It only gets better.